Welcome to the Kind of Intentional podcast. Life gets full fast and it's easy to drift from the life that you actually want to build. Each episode, we're going to take on one real-life topic, share honest stories, and pull out practical ideas you can actually use. These episodes are short, they're focused, and they're intentional because your time matters and so does the life you're building. I'm here with my co-host, Danielle Andrew.
Hello. Fun fact. Right before we recorded this podcast today, we decided to try to rearrange the entire podcast room.
What a disaster.
It was a disaster, and then we gave up because we didn't have enough time for that.
So guess what? We are working with cords dangling, and it is driving my OCD crazy. For sure.
But we cared so much about getting this content down that
For you, the listener.
we're just ignoring the mess.
For sure. So what are we going to talk about today, Danielle?
Fixing the friction.
Oh my gosh, what does that stinking mean?
You know, I didn't think of friction in this way until probably a year ago.
Yeah.
Like, friction to me is the science friction, right?
Oh man, you're not going to go off physics on us, are you?
That's where my brain goes when I hear the word friction.
Yeah.
Now, my brain does not just go there. It goes to, like, what is harder than it should be in life?
Yeah, so what we talk about a lot is most people think that they have a motivation problem, or maybe it's like a discipline problem, or like it's time. Like, I just don't have enough time. Mm-hmm. But it's actually really often just a friction problem. The thing slowing us down isn't our effort all the time. It's this resistance that we're up against all the time. I mean, there's so many things on our daily basis that just creates a tremendous amount of resistance to us that it slows us down. And I mean, I have so many countless examples. I mean, it's hard to pull out just one specific example from a personal story, but like, here's an example of a friction item that everybody can relate with: password management.
Ugh.
That ever been a problem for you?
It's just the worst.
It is absolutely the worst. You changed your password on something, and it could be something silly like
you just better hope and pray that Google remembered it.
Yeah, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, it's like, okay, now I have 15 sports apps that I use to communicate with my the kids' teams. I got the place that I'm ordering my meals from, and the pizza delivery place, and every single one has a password and they can't repeat. And because everything's so complicated today, you use a different password or some variation of the same password, and then all you want to do is you just want to log in, you want to order dinner, and now you can't remember your password.
Yep.
And so the friction that's there is like, it's not that big of a deal. You just click on the button to reset your password, you wait 5 minutes or whatever it is, and the email comes through, you reset the password. You certainly aren't going to write it down again.
But all of that takes time.
And it just slows you down. And that kind of stuff is, especially like in a work environment, the same thing happens often with individuals and teams with their password management. You know, a staff member signs up for a new account through a subscription, that content needs to be shared with somebody else. And unfortunately, because that password management's not there, there's so much friction that's associated with that because it just slows you down. It's not insurmountable. You know, friction doesn't ever I guess eventually friction does stop things. But I was going to use that example, but physics would prove me wrong on that. Darn you, physics, these silly laws of science and nature.
Figuratively.
Yes. But usually we have enough momentum and tenacity that we keep fighting through it. But that friction is in everyday life. And it is what deals with organizations all the time.
And I think, too, the thing to note is sometimes the tiniest of frustrations are what send you over the edge.
Yeah.
Like, it's just we've said this a bunch of times, like, everything's harder than it needs to be. Why is everything so hard? And it's because, there's things that we were not intentional about prior to doing the thing that we're doing.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, like, people, I think what you're saying there is like, most of the time we're not just hitting like one big obstacle and be like, I'm done. It's usually a ton of like tiny frustrations that you just keep hitting up against. And it's just like, all right, I'm going to try this again tomorrow. It's that morning that you start off and, something that happens with the coffee maker and you can't get the coffee you make. And then you open up the refrigerator and you just don't have enough milk, or whatever these things are. It's just like it builds. Mm-hmm. And we deal with that with a lot with organizations, and especially in work. It could be like, all I need to do is get this report out. It's going to be super easy.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't take long. But the unfortunate thing is the person down the hall has the piece of the information that I need. They're not at their desk. So now I need to send them a message. And I don't know if I should send it to them as a Teams message or a text message. Mm-hmm. Should I send them an email? And then, unfortunately, you text the person and then all of a sudden they email you back the information. And now you're at the end of the day and you're like, gosh darn, I got to get the report done. You go to your text messages, they didn't respond to it. And you're like, why do I not have the data? And you're like, I think I saw it somewhere, but then you can't remember well, did you text it to them? Did they send it back to you in Teams? Did they send it to you in an email? And that friction is what slows people down. And it's just so frustrating because it's just like, this should be so easy. I should just walk down the hall, get it done. But instead it takes 5 extra steps.
Yeah, and I just got stressed listening to you say all of those things. So imagine how that feels in the moment.
Yeah. And so, I think one of those things that we're thinking through is like communication can be such a friction point, especially in a relationship and a marriage. You feel like you've communicated and you're like, hey, I'm going to cover this zone, you're covering that zone, I'm running this child, you're running that child. And unfortunately, sometimes because it's done verbally, it's done in passing, and we're already thinking about the day, we're thinking about, what's next on our plates, we totally forget the fact that what we communicated, who was doing what, and then all of a sudden it's 3:00 and you're scrambling last minute to try to figure out how somebody's going to get picked up from the sports field because you're just rushing. And those things again are just little bits of friction that are just designed in every portion of our day.
Yeah. One of the things that we've struggled with in just the work setting is just constant distractions. And so usually it's because I'm saying something silly or getting us off topic in some way.
The whole 10 minutes before this was recorded?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I never get us off topic.
Oh my gosh.
Ever. Well, one of obviously that does happen, and we had to come up with a system that worked to where we, are able to have sections of time for deep work and really have that focus time. And so one of the things that we do, and this took planning. It was communication. We had to sit down and talk about how are we going to do this? What's the plan? So we create that plan, and then that's ultimately what we're going to follow through with. Just talking about it or just doing it the one time. You got to have that plan in place for how you're going to do those things. And so we have a timer, a physical timer in our office. It's an hourglass timer. So we flip that over when that's
old school sand style.
Old school sand style. It's super cool. So we flip that over. That's how we know we're in our focus work time. And then we have our workflow tool, ClickUp. We put our status on there is that we're in focus mode. And then we know that we're not going to text each other, email each other. We are primarily going to use ClickUp as our communication. That way, our do not disturb is on. That's another thing. We turn our do not disturb on. That way, we can go to ClickUp and see the message, but we have to actually go to that platform and see it. And you can choose to ignore it until you're out of your focus work time. But when you're in the moment, you got to send that message. Like, I can't forget to send this to this person. And so that's kind of how we've attacked that, and that's helped significantly. But again, you have to actually use the system that you've built.
Yeah. So I love all that. So let me break that down and think it through again, because sometimes the things that we do every day that feel normal, they're just not, that's where there's friction. And most of the time what we feel like and what we realize is sometimes just because we've always done it that way, it may not be serving us at the point where we're at today. And so that's a prime example. So, when Danielle and I started working together, and then we brought Sean on, there's this collaboration that happens where we're constantly communicating and talking. And then when you kind of work through that, there's this constant level of shallow work. So what Danielle was saying there is the first step in any of these things, what we're talking about with friction is stopping and pausing and just realizing that it actually exists. That's that mindset shift. Like, oh my gosh, like, we're just not as productive as we could be. We're not producing the quality that we need to anymore. And until you can take that pause and be like, why is this not working? You can't even start to get into the behavior shifts. And so, one of the things that Danielle really clearly mentioned was that we had to say, like, okay, like, this behavior has to stop. We can't constantly keep talking to each other. It doesn't mean that we would like that all day for, 8 hours in the day. It just means, like, for this period of time, we need to articulate, like, hey, we have to stay focused, heads down, get this work done. And so the behaviors there were our do not disturbs on. So that way we're not getting messages and distractions that are popping through. We have that hourglass that we're flipping over, and it's counting down the time. It's a visual sign to each one of us, like, hey, this is about focus. This is about productivity. It's about getting through these things, and it's about using some of these systems that we've designed. And so that way the work is prioritized before we ever get in there. It's saying, okay, this is the most important thing that you need to do. Here's the information that you need. But again, I think the biggest priority there is that we have to pause long enough to say, man, the fastest way around the friction that we're experiencing isn't about adding to it. It's about removing. It's about saying, like, let's pause long enough to think about, like, why does this feel like it's hard? Because often this complexity, these everyday things that we're dealing over and over again, they're just robbing us of our horsepower and our motivation and our energy, because it's just what's exhausting us on a daily basis as we push against that stuff.
And I think another thing too, you have to just really set aside pride in this kind of situation, personally, in work, whatever it is. It's okay to think critically about what you're doing and analyze that critically and just think, how is this going to make my life easier? Like me saying that we're distracting each other. That's not like a put down. You shouldn't feel anything, shameful related to that. But, that's something that you're recognizing that that's a distraction for you. Right. And, it's going to ultimately make you better. And so I think that it's important to remember that we all have ways that we can grow and improve.
100%. Yeah, it's just one of those fun things. So, like, as we think about this, and we're kind of working towards, improving this. This is a really passionate part of mine. I came up with this idea of friction. Operational friction is where this term actually came from, and it was just at a previous job employer that I had, where there was just everything that we tried to do just slowed things down. It slowed it down for the guests. It slowed it down for us, and we were like, man, we have to start to reduce this friction. And because a huge can of WD-40 does not exist to spray around everything, we really need to just like focus a little bit harder and say, like, okay, like, what are the unnecessary things that happen on a daily basis? And so I think I would challenge everybody to just kind of list out those things. Like, if passwords are continuously a challenge for you, there are so many great apps, like even the password manager on the iPhone, such a great app. We also use a password system on our computers that we're able to share confidential passwords with each other and everything. And so, I mean, there's just so many great systems out there for that. But the only way you're ever going to solve for that is by slowing down long enough to say, man, I really want to fix this. I don't want to go through this frustration and trying to figure out my password every single time. Or maybe it's a communication thing, and it's like, hey, we got to get this skylight, and we got to kind of work through this. So I challenge everybody, pause long enough to list out those things that are slowing you down, and then just start solving for them in a priority order.
Yeah, I think we can all find one piece of friction and attempt to remove it or make it a little less difficult in our week.
Yeah. Progress isn't about doing more. It's about making it easier to do what already matters.
Yeah.
All right. Well, another great episode, with all the dangling cords around us. But hopefully this content was great. Again, we're going to drop a new episode every Tuesday. We'd love it if you would share us some feedback. We're just about ready to launch a really exciting new feature on our website. So that's coming soon. We're targeting September 1st for that, September 1st, 2026.
Exciting stuff.
And so we got a lot of cool things that are happening. So hopefully everybody hits that subscribe button, keeps following us. We'll kind of continue to work to produce great content for you.
See ya.